Lester Baker, Framingham Police Chief, and I'm employed by the City of Framingham. It's my role to make sure that I take care of the men and women of this police department, give them the correct vision of how I want them to move forward, make sure we're a professional police department, make sure we're staying on top of current trends. I constantly just go out and listen to the community. As police chief, I could sit here and have all these ideas and set mandates and set policies and set procedures, but at the end of the day, I have to know what the people want that we police. This is their police department, and we try to stay on top of that from top to bottom. We go out, we get into the community, and we listen. While I was in high school, I actually wasn't thinking too much educationally wise. After high school, I enjoyed playing football. I thought I'd go off to play football in college, right up until I realized I didn't prepare myself for college, and I immediately went to work after high school, and no longer played football. As a kid, I want to say 5 or 6 years old, I've always wanted to be a motorcycle police officer, and it was kind of like a dream, right behind every other little boy's dream, playing in the NFL. I did the right thing by listening to my mother, staying out of trouble as far as becoming a police officer, but educationally, I didn't set myself up. I decided to do that later in life. For me, it was mostly playing football. The only career opportunities was the Marine recruiter and the Army recruiter would often come to practice. So I actually almost went to the Marine. My mother asked me to stay, so I didn't do it. I make sure I tell others now there's advantages and resources out there for you, but personally I didn't take advantages, but they were there. I started out parking cars in the Boston area, between hotels, medical facilities for a company, and I actually stayed there right out of high school to the point where I started managing the garages a little bit later in a few years. It taught me responsibility. I started just simply parking cars, and I considered myself a hard worker. People noticed, and then I was put in a supervisor role. I started managing them in the Valley Parking to the point that somebody reached out to me and said, how would you like to run a garage? And then I started by running one garage and then ultimately running a few garages. And I also had a few family members that were police officers that steered me in the right direction. Well, there was a posting, it was in the actual newspaper, like an actual paper newspaper, but I still didn't know too much about it. But I knew other people that were applying, so that's how I kind of got hooked in it. Not being in the military, having no exposure to that type of structure. One thing that I can say truly helped me was football. Playing youth organized football gave me that structure, the discipline, the able to deal with the toughness of it. When I went through it was very similar to basic training, or what people would describe as boot camp. I didn't have a huge background to that, but I had a great class. We all got each other through it. And that first year was just like eye-opening. To be quite frank with you, I was a little immature. I was very, very young. And on this job, you think that it's all about catching the bad guy and the stuff you see on TV, and that's a very tiny bit of what you do. More of what you do, the 99% of what you do is just talking to people and just trying to solve someone's problems. We say in the cop business, you're not a police officer until your first 5 years. It's because you're still learning, basically. You're learning and growing. Yeah, I started out as a patrolman. Was able to live my dream of becoming a motorcycle officer. I then rose to the rank of sergeant, then lieutenant, and then deputy chief, and I'm now the chief. In each one of those roles, just constantly growing, trying to stay ahead with trends and keep moving forward. It took about a good 7 years into the job that I finally realized, and a few people kicking me in the butt basically and said, why don't you go get your degree? And I finally buckled down, and in my 30s went and got my bachelor's degree. And got my bachelor's degree and said, that's it, I'm all done. Work in school's too much and I'm not gonna do it. Then I decided in my 40s, my very late 40s, that I'm gonna go get my master's degree. So education never stops. I should have never stopped, but I'm glad to say that I'm still continuing it. But if I had to do all over again, I would have never stopped educating myself. I was fortunate enough to have great bosses and mentors. I did receive lots of training that wasn't just your typical police training of physical capabilities. I went to a lot of schools and other things like that would just like going to college. So I'm glad for that, but I would have never stopped going to school. And I'm a firm believer that education is important for no matter what you do. Could I get on this job without a degree? Yes, you can. Did I? Yes. Does having that degree make you better and more educated? Absolutely. Starting out to become a police officer, I go back to that old adage, you're going to have to keep your nose clean, stay out of trouble. The decisions you make today will affect you tomorrow. A bad decision today could stop you from becoming a police officer. It could stop you from having a license to carry, which you need to be a police officer. Even something as simple as your bad driving behavior. You may do something now that everyone's going to say, well, that's what every kid does. Yeah, every kid does that, but not every kid can be a police officer. So the decisions you make today will affect you tomorrow. And, you got to keep that in mind. And I firmly believe that about everything you do today. There are plenty of jobs other than police officers that do background checks. I'll even take it a step further. I'm not big into personal social media. I don't do it. But we have had candidates that have things they've done on social media have come back many years later and haunted them in an interview where they can't be a police officer. And as everyone should be well aware, there is no delete. It may be deleted from your personal device, but it's not deleted. I don't know what high school looks like now, but I know there were so many resources at the time that I never explored them. I used to always hear time moves so fast, things are going to go by so fast. And you hear that from adults, you ignore it. It does. Take advantage. Starting in second grade, I tell kids is read, 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 and read more. Find something, I wasn't big into reading, but I had a smart mentor that said, well, what interests you? And, I gave him a few interests. And he said, start out by reading a magazine. Well, then I started reading magazines, which turned into books, which then grew my reading comprehension. So I would say, listen to your teachers. I know it sounds corny, but it's so true. Create study habits, read. Just all the things that your parents and these adults are telling you to do. There's a reason why we're telling you to do it, because we lived it, and we don't want to see you make the same mistakes. It's tough. Nobody wants to listen to their parents, but if somebody else says something, it seems like kids gravitate towards it. So I'm sure that most people have somebody in their life that they listen to. Those lessons that they're trying to give you right now, take them, listen to them. Even if you take a piece of them, just listen to what people are saying. They're telling you these things because they live them, and they just want the best for you. There's nothing that that you're dreaming of or anything you want to do that can't be achieved. I know if you told me years ago when I started this, or even halfway through my career, that I would be the chief of police, I would have said you're crazy. I didn't think it would be achievable, but I'm living proof.